Here it is, the online manual for the BT57, which is the 1994 to 2001 Go4 interceptors. This is the manual that's on the Silly Little Cars website, and the section I need for the suspension work I'm going to be doing is section 6, page 20. Let's go check it out. Here it is, section 6, page 20. This is the exploded view parts for the rear suspension work. What I'm going to be doing today is showing you how to replace these 4 bushings that are on either side of the car. And this is the actual torsion bar. It's connected with these rubber bushings to the front frame. This is the front of the vehicle. This is the rear. They actually have the 9-step instructions on how to do it, but no way I'm doing it that way. It's way too much work. That's why Canada is not in the automotive industry, I'm pretty sure. I will be showing you how to do it a lot simpler and quicker, hopefully. So this is it. Let's go out and get to work. Alright, here we are. Already jacked it up and removed the wheel so you have more access. It'd be nice to leave the wheel on, just keeps it nice and level. But what I've done is I've supported the suspension arm just so it doesn't drop too much, and the front rail cab, because you have to keep it kind of somewhat level. You don't want these bolts pinching. You can see this is the bolts I'm going to be replacing. This is a 2001 Go4, which is the BT57 models with the torsion bar suspension. And as you can see, this thing only had 22,000 miles on it when I got it 5 months ago. And I'm surprised at how much wear there is on some of these rubbers. It was from the coast area up in Northern California. Maybe it had something to do with it. These are the new ones I put on a couple weeks ago, so you can see the difference. And the torsion bar, you can see it runs all the way across from one side to the other. But the only other thing you can see here is the motor mount right there, that round thing. I don't know if it's light enough right here. Between the motor mount and these bolts, these torsion bar bolts, it's the only thing that really keeps this side, the rear and the front bolted together. I mean, there's some few hoses and our radiator stuff, but other than that, it's odd suspension. So anyway, what we're going to do is I'm going to remove these bolts, and I'll show you why I'm going to cut them off. According to the manual, you're supposed to remove control arms, lower shock from the suspension arm, control arms here, and and the wheel assembly, I guess, just to keep the weight. So they want you to pull this whole thing back so you can get these bolts in, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut that bolt, and I'll show you how much it'll be just as, a lot easier, a lot less work. Still work, not as much work. So right now I'm going to just loosen up these bolts, and I'll show you what the problem is that we have with the length of these bolts. That's 9/16 bolts, 24-inch thread, so there's a lot of quarter turns going on here. So I loosened up the top, so this one here should start to spread out. So we're going to just slowly separate it. See if I need to do any supporting. You just got to get this bolt so it will slide freely back and forth. And once you do that, you still got to get the spacing right here to get the new bushing in, because that's a lot smaller, narrower, because it's so compressed, the bigger one. So we need to increase that space, and that gets to be the tricky part, because you got to make adjustments with your jack. So I'm going to get these bolts undone, and then we'll show you why they have to be cut out. So I'll be able to show you the problem. I got this one loosened up enough. You see, you can't get the bolt out because it hits the frame. So it's not going one way or the other. The only way to get these bushings out is to get the bolt all the way out, and that ain't happening. So that's why we are going to cut the bolt so we can get all this out, and then put in a new bolt and bushings. Well, this is the tool I'm going to use to cut it. Gets in there just good enough, so give me a few seconds here and I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Sparks are going to be flying, so hopefully we'll get it without breaking this one bit. I got others. Okay, I got the bolt cut, and then one of the bushings out. Bolt's cut, one of the bushings, but what I'm going to do now is, before I take that bushing out, I'm going to knock in some wedge in here so it doesn't collapse on me. So we'll be putting that's a little too big, so this is just some funky molding I got. So I'm just going to pound those in to keep the separation. Okay, with the wedge in there, I was able to pull out the bushing. Oop. So able to get the wedge in. So might have to make a little bit of adjustments to get the thicker bushing in, but we'll deal with that in a minute. But okay, got the old bushings out. Definitely trashed. Actually, this is the one that looked real thin, and when you get it out of there, once it gets decompressed, it doesn't look bad, but boy, you could tell by the way it looked before it was bad, and plus it's lost all of its stiffness. These are the ones I'm replacing it with. Just I got them off the shelf at Pep Boys, I think, but I think O'Reilly has them, any auto parts store. These are just shock absorber bushings, a standard. You know, they have this little bump on them, and actually the old ones did too, so it's kind of like just your basic shock bushing. I guess any of them will do. I'm assuming that goes in there like that, so that's why I did the other ones. Kind of thought maybe this little notch went into this bigger hole here, but it really doesn't, because the hole's only big on, well, it's not big on both sides, but the diameter is different, so I just put it in any way I can. So, all right. Well, there was one thing I forgot to show before. Pretty much got it all installed, but there was one thing I forgot to tell you, is that when this gets cut, the bolt the top ones wasn't a problem. Putting the bottom one in, I guess I should have thought about it a little more, but can't get the good 2.5-inch bolt in because of this or this. So I went to Home Depot and got these 55mm hex bolts that they had. I think the quality is just as good, but that's the ones that work. I could actually get it in the back, and 2.5 is too long, 2 inches is too short. Good luck finding a 2 1/4. But this 55mm one, you can get it auto parts store, Lowe's, or Home Depot. That's the only one that, and it was able to bring it in from the back side and then bolt it here. Actually took this one apart again and put it in the right way, because I wanted to get a washer in there just for, they didn't put washers in it. It was kind of sloppy, but that's pretty much it. I tightened them up. I really don't know how tight to tighten them. I just got to where it looked like there was compression. I'm going to take it for a drive. Looks pretty nice and straight here. I don't see any tweaking. I don't think I'm going to have to adjust my my upper or lower control arms. I'll see what happens when I get the wheel on, see if I have any toe or camber. If I do, then I'll just go ahead and turn my upper or lower control arms to level out the tire. I think the other one looked pretty good yesterday when I did it. I got the tire looking pretty good without too much camber in it. So I'm going to take it for a ride. The ones I did yesterday still look pretty good. See, I just got some compression in there. And then I'll just keep tightening them, checking them, and tightening them. I'd like to put another bolt on these just to have a locking bolt. Okay, well that's I think that's pretty much it. I'll put the tire back on, take it for a ride, and I'll let you know how it works, but I know it's going to work great. It's not an easy project, but it's definitely doable. I did this one. Took me an hour and 40 minutes to do it, and definitely the hardest part is just keeping these holes aligned and keeping the spacing, so you can get the new bushing in, and you do that by adjusting the heights. I took this one off because you can upper and lower the control arm, and you got to keep it straight. That's really the only tricky part, but it's definitely doable. I'm going to go for a test drive, and I'll let you know how it rides. I'll take this thing out for a test ride here. Take it over some bumps. This thing always drove like a mini tank. I felt every bump, jarring. You can feel bumps, but they're smooth bumps now. I actually feel my front shocks bouncing, and they've never bounced before. In fact, I was concerned at one time that they were even operating. I made a video of them just to see if they were moving up and down. This thing rode so hard, I thought I was just riding on with no shock at all. But the whole suspension now feels, I can feel the rear shocks working. Bumps that I've gone over before that sounded metal on metal almost are nice and cushiony. I went from a tank to a driving like a regular car. These things, they are what they are. They're never smooth, but I can definitely feel the difference. You can almost, I've never felt this bounce, smooth bounce before. Before everything was jarring, and now it, boy, that's nice. Woo! It's a little bit of work. $25 in parts, and but oh my goodness, does it ever feel good. It is smooth, so I'm really stoked. I'm sure you can check your bushings. If they look bad, definitely replace them, because you will feel the difference in the ride. This is really nice.